Portugal, there's a YouTube show full of fun facts you need to know. Carl rings the bell and a member show to the GMP Morning Show.
Olá Bom Dia ALEGRIA, Munson here with the Good Morning Portugal show, a live stream and podcast. The cat is locked out of the studio, so there is no danger that Jenny the tabby will plunge the show into darkness again, leaving my guest on the screen to run the show, as James did yesterday. Well done, James. Good work on that. And I think Jenny liked your Bird of the Week suggestion as well. She's fascinated by the little feathered creatures. Yeah, Cat-Free Tuesday, absolutely spot on. I imagine she sat in a window making those funny noises that cats make while they look at birds outside leaping around on the roof. Good morning to you, Tito. Bom dia alegria Gampus from you, and Andeiro. Bom dia Malta from a simpleton living in Portugal. That's a great name for a YouTube channel. Andy, here for a good time, not a long time. Oh, yes. That would sound great in Latin, wouldn't it? I wonder what that is. Off out for a cycle in a Mogoban. And is that like a good time in the show and not for a long time? Is that on planet Earth? I mean, I guess it's applicable to both scenarios, is it not? Without wanting to seem too morbid. Bom dia, Gumpus, e feliz terça from a sunny Paris. My goodness. About to catch the Le TGV to Hendaye and then onwards to San Sebastian. We'll try to send photos, etc. Have a great day. That's lovely. Thank you for thinking of us, Coach Turner. And Karen and Mike. Bon dia from sunny Miranda de Corvo this morning as well. Good to see you both. Now, of course, the dominant news here in Portugal is around the death of Pope Francis. So I'll be taking a little bit of a look at that this morning and the reaction from the government. It's been quite difficult to get a more general sense of how it's impacted the culture here, obviously predominantly Catholic culture. But let's take a look. We'll go over to the Portugal Club for this, where I just put a few words together this morning. Let's have a look then at what has been said here in Portugal by the Prime Minister and the leader of the Socialist Party here in Portugal. Pope Francis died yesterday, and it was a stroke, apparently, that was the cause of death. Let's have a look at how the Prime Minister responded. The Pope, of course, notably visited Portugal on a couple of occasions. Once previously to celebrate the centenary of the apparition of Our Lady in Fatima, which happened in 1917, and he came for the centenary in 2017. And most recently for World Youth Day, which was quite the occasion, was it not, in the capital? I don't know if you can cast your mind back a couple of years to that in 2023. The best way to honor him, said Prime Minister Luis Montenegro on hearing about the Pope's death yesterday, will be to follow his teachings and example on a daily basis in our different activities. That's what Montenegro said. And PS leader Pedro Nuno Santos, of course, posted on social media of his deep consternation on learning of the death of Pope Francis this morning. That was yesterday. He was a courageous voice in defense of social justice, human dignity, and peace. His spiritual leadership transcended religious and political boundaries, becoming an ethical and moral reference point for millions around the world. He was a pope for the poor, the excluded, and the voiceless. He was a tireless defender of the environment, of solidarity between peoples, and of the need for a fairer economy. His legacy will forever be inscribed in the history of our time. On behalf of the Socialist Party and myself, said Pedro Santos, I express our deepest sympathy to the Catholic Church, the Portuguese Catholic community, and the Vatican. May his memory continue to inspire all those who believe in a more humane, just, and fraternal world, said Santos. It seems in Portugal, this is my additional commentary, having had a look around, trying to make or get a sense of how and what the impact is on Portuguese culture. Around 80.2% of the population identifies as Catholic here in Portugal, with a considerable number of people also participating in religious practices like baptism and marriage in the church. That's according to the 2021 census, While many consider themselves culturally Catholic, this is an interesting distinction, isn't it? Regular mass attendance and adherence to church teachings are less widespread, particularly among younger generations, suggests a quick AI overview this morning. And so, yeah, looking at Expresso, Portugal Resident, and Google this morning for that. What does Pope Francis' life, death, and legacy mean to you? Do let me know in the chat, if you will, this morning. Right. We'll have a further look at the newspapers. A slightly discombobulated show in terms of our regular guests this morning. We've got Marion Geray over in the Azores. Although she has sent us something of a postcard, you can do the same on 913-590-303. Oh, news just in from central Portugal. Bom dia, Campos. Whoop, whoop. The sun is out. Good for you, Phil. Thank you for your message this morning as well. You filled my cup this morning, Phil. We both got our IMA appointments yesterday. Very good, T-Duck. They're not until the end of August, but we're both on the same day. Yes, and fairly close together in time and location, I understand as well, which is great. Well done on that, you two. Bon dia from Salgueiro de Lomba, where a stranger born is burning in the sky. It seems familiar, but I don't know what it is. Relax, calm down, everybody. It's just the sun. You remember the sun, don't you? Wow. Okay. Yeah, I can see it peeking through the net curtains of the studio here as well. So let's have a little bit more of a look at the news as well. We will share some footage from Marion. I was hoping to have Sarah calling in. We're working our way towards a weekly currency update for you as part of the changes here on Good Morning Portugal that will really be felt starting next week, and I will make announcements about how things are going to roll in spring and summer. But some quite big changes actually are afoot, and it'll be my pleasure to tell you about those and hopefully engage you in the new way forward for Good Morning Portugal for the spring and summer, as we like to mix it up and try different things and see how we can best serve you here from Good Morning Portugal. Right. Also, Gemini saying hi. Good morning, everyone, with a lovely heart as well. How are you this morning? Tudo bem? Gemini, good to see you this morning. All right. More of that news coverage then in the Bom Dia Daily section. And yes, we should have a look at the weather, shouldn't we? We should see what the prognosis is. No sooner have I started talking about the sun that it seems to have withdrawn from the sky. And my on-air sign is really bleaching the screen. So why not pretend that is something of a surrogate sun on the screen? I haven't got the light balance right. The rest of the room is in darkness. I've got my ring light on and my neon light on, and I haven't got the rest of the lighting right here in this room. So forgive me on that. And we will have a look at the weather. Yeah, we'll take a look at the Good Morning Portugal weather after we've had a look at the other news headlines this morning as well. Obviously dominated by the death of Pope Francis from a stroke that came into us yesterday. We also hearing about the digital euro. Talking of currency, the digital euro and Ursula von der Leyen wanting to expedite that for the autumn of this year. Oh, the sunshine's looking rather good. We'll come back to that. That's excellent. Yes, the forecast is looking rather good, at least on the Good Morning Portugal weather pages. And actually, just thinking about it, I can't remember where the source material or the science comes from behind the forecast. Weather forecasting is so unreliable, it would appear, wouldn't it, in our times? We have the most amazing technology and ways of receiving the technology, but the actual content itself about the weather seems so unreliable. Is that to do with the microclimates of Portugal? What do you think is behind that, and why weather forecasting seems to be so unpredictable here in Portugal? Or if you disagree with me, if you have found a very reliable source of finding out what's going on with the weather, do share. Please share, if you will. Right. Let me see then. Let's go to the Portugal news. We've had a little bit of the flavour of things from the Portugal resident. Let's check out the Portugal news and see what they're talking about this morning. And if there's anything else that's come across your desk, as it were, in terms of the news, do let me know as well. You can send me a message, 913-590-303, or just pop a mention of it in the chat. Tax scam message warning. That's seasonal, isn't it? Of course. I'm bringing that onto the screen for you now. This is the virtual front news of the virtual front page of the Portugal News. Missed a few words out there. I'm also my piece for the Portugal Resident this week. Oh yeah, I don't want any pop-ups coming up there. Thank you very much. My piece for the Portugal Resident is Munson versus AI, and I will be talking about. Well, I've mentioned it here before, haven't I? But I'm not that bothered about AI. I think it's going to free us up to do what we're really here for on planet Earth, and I talk about that in my article, which will be published on Thursday in the Portugal Resident this week. Right, Portugal News then. What's happening over here? Tax scam message warning. A hipster-looking Portuguese fellow is looking at his phone, wondering if the AT has sent him a real message or if it's some sort of fraudulent business going on there. Watch out then for fraudulent emails and SMSs. People still using those. Oh yeah, actually it's quite popular, isn't it? As well as WhatsApp, the SMS seems to be quite an important marketing medium here in Portugal still. So there's the tax scam message warning. Watch out for that. Portugal 6th for oldest workers. Might have to have a little look at that. Portugal Restaurant Week returns to California. Ooh, should we pop over to California and eat some Portuguese food? No, we can stay here and do that. And news in Heather Binder, who I don't think can join us on Thursday, but sent in some news, and we may speak to her another time this week. News of an authentic Mexican restaurant. I know, perhaps, yeah, it's a nice little connection there, isn't there? California, Mexico, and back to Leiria. There is news of a Portuguese, a restaurant in Portugal, obviously in Leiria, that is specializing in Mexican food that Heather, when we talk to her, will tell us all about. I think she helped the owners of the restaurant move to Portugal. Parties cutting campaign costs as Chega doubles their budget, probably with more of their narky posters around the place. Unemployment up 1.5% here in Portugal, it would appear. And new you say it, new photovoltaic plant public consultation ends. I wonder what is that worth opening up? Perhaps not at this moment. A new local support centre for migrant integration. I wonder where that one is. There's a few things we might take a look at this morning. Wharton, there's nothing about the Pope here on this front page, I notice. A Portuguese tech powerhouse poised to make waves globally, flying into the UK with ham or cheese. Beware of fines. I feel very tempted to look at that by way of a warning to anybody who was thinking of doing that today, flying into the UK with ham or cheese. I think that probably, a new species comes to the Dino Park. That looks like Lourinhã to me. And which airports in Portugal are busiest? I'm going to go with Faro on that. Okay. Portuguese companies sacrificing profits. Let's see. Let's see what's going on with this cheese and ham story then. A mixta reception, it would appear, if you're flying into the UK. Brits flying home from Portugal will need to check their bags. You may thank me for this later. Before they fly, as the rules for what you can bring back have changed. Okay, you Brits flying back from Portugal. This is interesting this morning. It is to me anyway. This is the sort of thing perhaps that you would be used to experiencing flying into Australia and their border force, who don't even let you bring in an apple today, that sort of thing over there. Very, very careful about what's allowed into Australia over there, as I recall. The United Kingdom has reinforced a strict ban on travellers entering the country with meat and dairy products, according to the Executive Digest via Europa Press. That is. And the measure is aimed at preventing the spread of foot and mouth disease. Yes. I see what's happening here. The measure is aimed at preventing the spread of foot and mouth disease, which has seen a rise in cases across parts of Europe. The UK's Department for Environment, Food and Rural Affairs, DEFRA, confirmed the expanded restrictions just ahead of the Easter holiday, intensifying controls on personal imports. The rule now applies to all beef, pork, lamb and dairy products, regardless of whether they're commercially packaged or purchased from duty-free shops. The Portuguese duty-free shop, as I recall, is not especially geared towards beef, pork, lamb and dairy products. I mean, you could probably get some dried pork there, can't you? Some sort of ham product. But really, under these updated rules, travellers from any EU country are prohibited. I read this because I anticipate there might be more of this across Europe. Under these updated rules, travellers from any EU country are prohibited from bringing meat or dairy products into the UK for personal consumption. Bringing these items is now considered illegal, and failure to comply can lead to fines of up to £5,000. Wow. There are limited exceptions to the ban, which include infant formula or baby food, presumably beef, pork, chicken, and dairy flavour, medically prescribed dietary products, and non-risk foods such as chocolate, bread, cakes, biscuits, pasta, and sweets. Okay, so you're okay. If everybody was starting to worry about whether you can take in your pastel de natas from Lisbon Airport, I think you're going to be fine on that. This is intriguing to me as well. Portugal's sixth for oldest workers. No ageism here in the job market, it would appear. Portugal's sixth for oldest workers. The proportion of workers, actually a noticeable absence of Pope news on the Portugal News front page here. The proportion of workers aged, and it's a strong connection with the Ireland as well, isn't there? Interesting at the Portugal News. Sometimes you see, or I've seen a green version of it, making it very much the Irish angle on the news in Portugal. Anyway, Portugal's sixth for oldest workers. The proportion of workers aged between 55 and 64 increased in the EU from 13.1% in 2010, just quite a hike, to 19.8% in 2023. In Portugal, workers between 55 and 64 is 20%, just over 20.5%, at 20.5%. In 2023, Portugal was the sixth country in the European Union with the highest proportion of workers aged between 55 and 64 in employment, surpassed only by Germany, Italy, Bulgaria, Latvia, and Lithuania. It was also the fourth EU country where the weight increased. What? The weight increased the most between 2010 and 23, and it is also one of the countries where the legal retirement age is highest. So you've got the largest, oldest, and the longest you have to wait. Is that right? To retirement. According to Jornal de Negócios, which relies on data from a report on how to keep older workers in the workforce, what would you say would be the best way to keep older workers in the workforce? Somewhere to nap in the afternoon, possibly, by the EU's tribe, and seats that are easy to get out of. Office chairs that you don't have to groan when you get in and out of them, with armrests, obviously. By the EU's tripartite agency, Eurofound, most countries have moved towards increasing the retirement age. Well, of course they have, but extending working lives requires more than legal measures, indeed. Maybe give them more money. That's normally why people go to work, isn't it? The data allows us to conclude that the proportion of workers between 55 and 64 years old increased in the EU from 13.1% in 2010 to 19.8% in 23. In Portugal, yes, there you go, 20.5%, the sixth highest value among the 27 member states. The evolution will be related to the aging of the Portuguese population and the fact that the country has, according to data presented in the same report, the fifth highest legal retirement age, the highest effective retirement age for men at 66.6 years. If you've been paying into Portuguese social security, you'll have to wait till then to draw down your pension. What is that? Does anyone listening get that? Is it like 200 quid a month or something? And the third highest, don't spend it all at once, and the third highest effective age for women at 65.6 years, writes the publication. So there you go, oldest workers, and no comments yet. No spicy comments on the Portugal news there. How are you responding to that, I wonder, in the chat here? JMC, how much do you get? I'm not saying you get the pension, but you're likely to know how much Portuguese people get for their pension when the men retire at 66 and the women retire at 65 or thereabout. Mel's joining us and talking about living simply here in Portugal. And her approach to that, saying here that retirement age in Australia is 67. What is it in the UK now? Is it 90? Or are they just putting it up to 95 later on this year, possibly, to make the funds go a little bit further, keep people paying in and holding off the moment until they have to be paid out? I found out a very interesting fact today. Let's have a look. Before predating that in the chat, in the archaeological record of the chat this morning, the weather is predictably unpredictable due to climate change. Just don't live next to the sea or a river. Dark skies used to be excellent until Apple bought it out. Oh, I see. The Apple do have a habit, don't they, of destroying some apps and technology, as well as making some good technology. They do have a habit of creating some howlers as well. It was dark skies. That's not a very nice name for a weather app, is it? However, you say don't live next to a river or the sea. I'm always taken by the lack of differential in the tides here in San Martino de Porto. People have built around the harbour and the seafront for centuries, clearly, and it's incredible. That massive body of water called the Atlantic changes very little across the year, and according to the rising and falling tides. It's quite extraordinary. No sign of that here in San Martino yet, anyway, Pete. Found out a very interesting fact today. The only two countries in Europe that are having enough babies to sustain their population are Ireland and Portugal. Well, climate change, fact change as well. I thought it was quite the reverse in Portugal, but that's interesting to note suddenly that Portugal is having enough babies as a country to sustain itself. And I obviously have to check your comments, generally speaking, Pete. Yes, and I'll leave that one. Your second. It was going well. Carl, what about oranges? My friends love bringing back oranges from Portugal to the UK. I'm sure they do. I don't know about that. I'm guessing that there is no fruit tree disease that we need to be concerned about yet. This is due to foot and mouth, I believe. So I imagine, and I don't know, please don't quote me on this or use me as a reliable guide on such matters. And these things can change very quickly. Probably the best thing to do is take a look at the border control website of the United Kingdom, where you'll get all of that sort of information. But I've heard nothing. I mean, basically, I've heard nothing about people taking fruit in and out of the UK. JMC is here with an Olá Pessoal. Good morning to you. Bom dia. Boa terça to you, JMC. And yeah, the retirement pension here in Portugal. Thanks, Mel, for this. We'll talk to you in a little while. Is about 230 euros per month. I get my Portuguese pension is 227. There you go, from somebody who gets it, who put into the system for 15 years. Well done. I live renting an apartment only, not retirement. $400 a month. That's very forthcoming of you. Thank you, JMC, on that. Portugal babies, often born of immigrant families, particularly Brazil, I believe, boosting up the Portuguese population. And we were stopped by a flooded road by a river yesterday and cycling to Aguada today. And as the name suggests, there'll be plenty of... Oh, Aguada. Very good. There will be plenty of the wet stuff around there. Yeah, Aguada is prone to a bit of flooding over there, isn't it? More than usual, would you say, Andairo? Bon dia from Ocean Dweller Aviva as well. Good to see you here this morning. Ireland and Portugal both have tiny populations, so it does make sense. Thank you, Pete, for that. And Bon dia Gampas, feliz terça a todos, como tem passado, from James, who was, of course, with me yesterday. A bit of a picture postcard from Marion, who can't be with us in person this morning, but reports in from the Azores. And before I go there, I think I'm going to have a look at this, something that caught my eye, something that I'm a little bit suspicious and wary of, I'll be honest with you, from a personal point of view. And this is Van der Leyen, keen to get the digital euro in place. However, some have responded with a petition pushing back. 1,000 sign a petition against a digital euro, apparently. Let's find out more about that now. Actually, before we do, let's see what else is going on the front page of the Portugal Resident, the esteemed publication that I am delighted to contribute to every week. Let's see what else they're saying. 4 Portuguese cardinals will help choose the next pope. So Portugal representing in the papal decision. 1,000 signed petition against digital euro. We'll take a look at that in just a moment. Portuguese start receiving emails from Meta about using their data for AI. I think we can just safely assume, can't we, that anything on our phones or devices that is that has the thumbprint of Meta on it will just be used. We are the We're not the customer. We are we are their business plan. We are their business, basically, or our data is. So if you don't want Meta using your stuff, and I know some of you don't in this community, then you might want to just log out forever from Facebook, WhatsApp, and Instagram for that. Yeah, I did get a little message on WhatsApp. I can't remember what it said, but I just assume that they will be using everything. A little bit like that unnerving moment in the Renault 5 on Sunday, where I made a joke to Colin about polar bears and got pulled up by the Renault paperclip on the dashboard. It kind of told me off, which was a little scary. If you're in the Algarve, you may be concerned to know that Algarve nurses may call 3 days of strike action in May. Not official then by the sound of it, but threatening their sardine fishing season starts today. Woohoo! That's good to know. And tributes and lamentations pour in following the death yesterday of Pope Francis. We've covered that earlier on this morning. Government's water strategy denounced as ecological social disaster. Some clearly not pleased with that. Let's have a look at this digital euro thing then and what it might mean. And I can guess what some of you might be saying. I'm going to guess that Hugh is not a fan of this. Am I right, Hugh? Defo Agada often floods there. There you go. Thank you for that. Be with you soon, Mel. Mel's in her studio already getting ready to join us. She's in the outside broadcast unit, as we'll discover in just a moment. Might bring on a little bit early and chat with you as well, Mel, if that's all right. Thousands signed petition against the digital euro, fearing it could undermine fundamental rights. God, if it's not Meta, it's the EU. ECB President I beg your pardon. I've interchanged Ursula and Christine. Now, you can forgive me for that, can't you? Because they are both women of a certain... The cut of their jib is quite similar, is what I'll say on that, as I apologise for mixing them up. ECB President Christine Lagarde pushing for digital euro to become reality by October. The European Central Bank, the ECB, believes that the adoption of the digital euro will lead to the withdrawal of 5 out of every 10 physical euros in circulation. Are you shuddering at that thought? According to a report released over the weekend. Look, don't worry. I am sure the ECB, the EU, the World Bank have all got our best interests at heart, wanting to replace paper money with a digital currency. Don't you think? Lusa News Agency reports that the institution led by Christine Lagarde defends the project as a matter of strategic sovereignty. I imagine it's for our own safety. Let's see if we get to that during this article as well. But the ECB, it'll be security, anti-laundering and anti-terrorism, won't it? Why this is such a good idea. But the ECB president herself admits that it cannot move forwards without the support of what she calls stakeholders. Not vampire killers, I'm thinking, which is not an entirely inappropriate link to make there, I think, in this instance. But the stakeholders she's thinking of are not exorcisers or vampire hunters. They are the European Parliament, the European Council, and the European Commission, who need to complete the legislative process. I think she's just giving them a little bit of a nod there, isn't she? Come on, you lot. The actual quantity of digital euros, or CBDCs as they are known in English, in circulation in the Eurozone will be determined by household demand. How's this going to work? Just as household demand determines the quantity of banknotes in circulation, writes Lusa. Kind of. I mean, you can't exactly go into a bank and say, when you make a withdrawal, is that determining the circulation? I don't know. Based on this premise, the ECB estimates that for every 10 digital euros issued, 5 physical euros will be withdrawn from circulation, and bank deposits will lose 3. So do you get a choice in this? The ECB has considered 3 possible scenarios, depending on whether demand is low. And what are those 3 possible scenarios? Tyranny, dictatorship, and voluntary adoption. Forgive my cynicism. Depending on whether demand is low, medium, or high. Okay. In the first case, the drop in banknotes would be 15 billion. It's okay. It's only 15 billion. In the second, 125,000, and the third, 256,000. That's quite a difference, is it not? Unless I've misread or misunderstood that. The ECB's calculation also includes coins, which are quantitatively much less relevant than banknotes, says Lusa. Is that like saying a euro isn't as much money as a euro coin isn't as much as a 10 euro note? I think we could have figured that out ourselves. Anyway, this information has been taken by advocacy group Citizen Go to suggest there is a lot going on behind the scenes that everyday people could be unaware of. What? No, say it isn't so. The site warns that this centralized currency could soon replace physical money, and this carries a number of issues. This is not the message coming from the ECB, who are saying, don't worry, everything's fine. Look over there, which describes the digital currency as an electronic equivalent to cash, which would complement banknotes and coins, giving people an additional choice about how to pay. More choice. According to a Euronews report earlier this year, the ECB president believes the digital euro will actually reinforce Europe's financial autonomy. Nonetheless, Citizen Go has drawn up a petition entitled "Don't Touch Our Money." Oh, that's familiar. Stop the plan for digital euro of the EU, which is rapidly gathering support. I imagine Portuguese people are quite cynical about this. Much of the warnings in the text could be over-exaggerations. Indeed, Citizen Go is described online as an ultra-conservative advocacy group. That's a good way to marginalize them. Yes, your far-right money think tank, no doubt. The good news, however, as conceded by Christine Lagarde, is that the launch of the digital euro is dependent on the approval by elected members. It's democratic. It's going to be dependent on the approval by elected members of the European Parliament, so nothing to worry about. And thus, the petition gathering signatures calling on Euro MPs to protect people's financial liberty and privacy could very possibly ensure extra scrutiny of the plan before it is given the green light. Wow, what do you make of that? Thank you, Natasha Don, for your reporting on that there. Digital control in two words. James, you're improved, I see. Meus complimentos. I'm sure that's about your skills there, your linguistic skills. Hugh, predictably, no way. We are ready, he says. And who elects members of the EU Parliament? I believe that's the one election you're not going to get this year. Of EU representatives. All the other 3 elections are taking place, but not of the EU representatives. I think I'm right in saying for this year. Talk to you in person about that soon, Mel. Before we go there, let's have a look at. They're described as media assets in my technology here. Let's have a look at Marion's digital assets coming in from the Azores this morning, which I thought I'd downloaded earlier on, quite frankly, but I'm struggling to find them now. Let me see if I go to another part. There we go. Some beautiful pictures. She's having a fun time. I don't know if it's a mixture of work and pleasure, if she's actually leading a workshop out there. If she is leading a workshop out there, it's the most beautiful environment. I think she's just having fun, quite frankly. A couple of stills for you first then. And look at this. This is absolutely beautiful, isn't it? From her kayak, I suspect there. That looks like a lot of fun. And I'm reminded I want to have at some point on my bucket list a kayak around the bay here in San Martino de Porto. Who's up for that? And who's got a spare kayak? More to the point. Oh, there you go. There's her Walksperia bag. So I think she might be hosting a workshop over there as well. Walksperia.com, of course, her workshop company for boosting your well-being, your health and well-being there with Marion. And here's a little bit of video then. This is her having cavorting, I think, in this sort of.
Und dann mit dem Seil rein, das Einwurfstück. Ja, aber du kommst runter. Du kannst richtig.
Ik kon 2 minuten op.
Oh my God. Okay.
Ja, wait. Nein, jetzt kommen die dann 3.
Ever the rebel there, coming in and out of the designated lines in quite an un-German way, I have to say there, Marion. And the message you sent to us there, it sounds like a German excursion. I could hear a lot of German voices there, I think, and accents. San Miguel Island is where she is, the ocean pool, where 90-degree thermal water meets the ocean water. Maybe that rope was where it actually meets, and that's where she was. Don't worry, if you're in the Azores, and the water gets eerily warm around you, that's not a gift from a fellow bather. That's the thermal water you can feel against your legs. Thank you very much, Marion, for thinking of us. Any other video or images, send them through on 913-590-303. The Azores, or wherever else you are enjoying Portugal, send pictures to us. EU commissioners apparently are nominated by national governments and approved by the European Parliament. So highly democratic then. Bon dia, morning greetings from the Minho up there. Is it moist in your Minho this morning, Antonio? Wishing you all a happy Tuesday. Make it a great one. Excellent advice. Thank you very much. Give us a thumbs up, Mel, if you're ready to join me already from the outside broadcast unit. Let's give her a nice big round of applause then. And bring her onto the screen. Morning, Mel.
Good morning. Can you hear me okay?
Loud and clear. Very good. Very good.
Good.
Yes. Are you nearby your Jerusalem, as it were, there? Your green and pleasant land?
Yes, I have to keep disappearing from my house because my dogs would bark you out of existence.
Okay.
So, yeah, but I'm near the land, but I still can't get down there. The road's blocked with water at the moment. So,
Oh, is it? Talking
hopefully
of
in
flooding.
a day or two. Yeah.
Right. And that's from the downpour. You're not near a river, are you?
No, I'm not near a river, and it'll be fine probably by this afternoon or tomorrow. But and if I had a tractor, I'd get through, but not with a car. But before I forget, I have a stand-up paddleboard, and there is a big São Domingos barrage nearby.
Yep.
So happy to host a stand-up paddleboard session, and there is a kayaking club there as well. Kayaking canoeing club. Nearby.
Where is this exactly then?
It's a huge dam, and it's a beautiful dam. It's called São Domingos, and it's kind of between Obidos and Peniche. When you go on the IP6, you actually cross it at about 3 or 4 different points.
I've seen it. Yeah, fantastic. Okay. Yeah, very good. Because it's all about the coast here, isn't it? On the Silver Coast, but of course there are other inland water features to enjoy as well.
Well, and it's only 5 kilometers from the beach. Like, it's not inland. It's really close. Yeah.
Excellent. All right. Well, thank you for that invitation. That's excellent. You mentioned a tractor. Will you be getting one eventually in your sort of dream development there in the countryside? Do you envision yourself driving around on a tractor, lady of the manor?
I would love to, actually. But no, probably not, because of the cost. And then you've got to also have somewhere to garage it, which I don't have either on my land or at my house. So maybe one day when I'm rich and famous or something, then I can afford these things. But it would be lovely. But I have great neighbours who have tractors. And the footage I think I sent you a while ago was the neighbour digging up my land for me.
Fantastic.
And I've been dragged out of the mud on a couple of occasions by another neighbour with a tractor.
Brilliant. Well, you do have wonderful neighbours, don't you? And you speak of them in the chat here about how welcome you've been made in your neighbourhood. It's lovely to hear that, and your language skills are developing as a result as well, by the sound of it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it makes such a difference. I've done a lot of study online. But you just can't, I walk outside and talk to someone and look like a deer in headlights because I couldn't understand anything they said. And I still can't. Like, I still only pick up certain points. And just a tip, what I've learned is, apart from saying sim and pois a lot. I've also learned just to reflect back a couple of words. If you get through this whole conversation and you hear something about cinco anos or something, then I go, oh, cinco anos. I had no idea what they were talking about, cinco anos, but that's my way of keeping the conversation rolling and trying to.
I'm just hoping you haven't made a terrible faux pas. Yeah, I mean, maybe we could come up with some other strategies together this morning. I think probably shouting out things like "força" or "liberdade" and putting your fist in the air and walking away in a very sort of authoritative way could be quite useful as well. Maybe, I don't know.
Oh, well, I do at the moment it's like "Sol."
Oh yeah, okay, yeah, and then run off.
Like, oh my God, Sol,
we gotta go.
Come os dois.
Vamos embora.
Vamos embora.
Excellent.
Praia. So yeah, they get kind of excited. I think they think I'm because Portuguese aren't as expressive as Italians or Spanish, and my hands are probably more aligned with Italian.
Yeah.
So I think they think I'm a little bit over the top sometimes, but they have a good laugh anyway.
And
So.
appreciate you by the sound of it anyway, regardless. Excellent. And that's the warm welcome and hospitality we often speak of here. Oh,
Yeah.
and a huge shouts out, I think probably Shaga, or maybe Shaga, I don't know, but Shaga as well, which probably draws a mixed reception from Portuguese people. You're here, of course, this morning, Mel. This is in a regular feature to speak of. I mean, we know you as Simply Live, Mel, in the chat. And I really want to talk to you more. We began our conversation last time, of course, and I think you've been on the screen a couple of times with us. But the development of this project and the whole idea, the ethos and the practicalities of coming to Portugal to live more simply, because that is what you're endeavouring to do, right?
Yeah, when I left Australia, it was to live more simply. I wasn't aiming for Portugal. I was just aiming to get, I run businesses in Australia and I had investment properties and I was raising a child on my own and it was just frantic. It was just a frantic, crazy life. And I think like many of us, I found that as hard as I worked, and it was ridiculous hours, I just gave more money to the tax man or they would change laws and I'd be disadvantaged. And I go, I'm just running around chasing my tail. I'm not getting forward.
Yes.
And so I just walked away from all of it. Now, I have say that I don't have a formal project that I'm working on here. I'm kind of still faffing around trying to figure out what to do, what I'm going to do when I grow up. But nonetheless, the purpose for me was very much about really simplifying and getting back to basics, which was interacting with humans. And the best time I actually had of that was 3 years of traveling just with a suitcase. And I literally had nothing. I'd sold everything. I didn't have money either. So I was doing volunteer work, house and pet sitting, that sort of stuff. And it was amazing. And living, like, it wasn't irregular. I was laughing with some friends about it the other day with my son in tow. It wasn't irregular for me to say, I don't know where I'm sleeping tonight. Like, I have to figure this out, something's fallen through. And in the moment, I'd have to adjust where I was going to be or figure worst case scenario, I can hop on a Flixbus and catch a night bus back to Hungary and then sleep on the bus there and this sort of stuff. But what it really showed me, and I think this is coming back to your point of coming back into what we can do here, what it really showed me is that people are good.
Yes.
Overall, people are good. And that doesn't mean there's not some concerning people that we shouldn't be wary, that we shouldn't be alert. But overall, overwhelmingly, people are good. And if we look at media, we're told to be worried about people all of the time. And I have said to many people, if they say, oh, what about those dangerous people? You walk down the street to the coffee shop today and you passed 100 people or more and none of them attacked you. Like, none of them did anything bad to you. And you can go days, weeks, months, years with nothing bad happening to you. And of course, it's normal for us to remember the one thing that does happen to us, but we completely wipe out the thousands of people that we interacted with that didn't do anything negative at all.
Yes.
And I also found that as I was in situations, and when you're traveling alone, even if it's just because you're lost or you're somewhere where you go, oh, I don't know that this is a great place to be, or these guys do look a little bit worrisome for me. I was sitting on a bus terminal in Milano, and it's very isolated, and it was about 10 or 11 at night, and I had to sit out there for an hour waiting for a bus. There's no staff on, and you could see all of these guys. They were obviously drug addicts, pickpockets, everything hovering around, and I'm just like, I was the only female there, and I thought, this is not good, and I can't go anywhere. I can't get back. There's nowhere to be. Right. And I was sitting at this long bench, and this Italian man walked up and he said to me in Italian, can I sit here right at the end of the long bench? He didn't sit next to me. He sat right at the other end. He said, may I sit here? I said, yes. He said, I just want to keep you safe.
Wow, how beautiful. Yes.
Fantastic. And this happened to me everywhere, Carl. And I can see James's comment, looking for dangers and threats. It is wired into our DNA, and it's also wired into us remembering those negative events to keep us safe for the future.
Yep.
So we have to do that. That's not a bad thing to do. But we can also just remember and we have to actively remember to counter that.
Yes.
We automatically remember the negative. And it is better to train our reticular activating system, which I think the terminology,
Yes.
to go looking for the positive, because otherwise what James is saying, which is quite correct, this conscious rewiring, at the moment we're being consciously rewired to the negative, even more than is necessary, far more than is necessary.
Yeah, I think so.
And we have to consciously counter that, because I think they said one negative comment, it takes 11 positive ones. If someone
Yes.
insults you or does say something nasty to you, even lightly, it takes 11 positive things to even moderately counteract the effects of that.
Yeah.
Because of that DNA. So for me, it's about getting back to the basics of getting to know the neighbours and being able to swap. And you were talking about the digital currencies.
Yes.
I talk to a lot of people, and potentially even yourself, Carl, about what can I do to barter? What
Yes.
can I do to exchange? Apart from you trying to use cash as much as possible, so I'm free to buy and sell whatever I want without having to tell a bank what I'm doing. That, also bartering. Also, I when I had my fitness center, I used to train my dentist, and I would do his personal training all year, and he would look after mine and my son's teeth.
Yeah.
And we just swapped. I just kept a
Yes.
tally of how much training I'd done, and then he
I think
just
a lot of
charged
that
me
goes on in
for,
Portugal. I think that is a very Portuguese way of doing things as well.
even with houses. I was talking to someone the other day, a Portuguese woman, who didn't know there's such a thing as permutas here, that you can
What's
swap
that?
housing and cars, and it's an exchange contract, basically.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. I've never heard of
We
that.
we can
That's
we can
interesting.
talk about that another time off air. But yes,
Permutas. Okay. Right.
permutas, yes.
Right. Okay.
And so you can swap a house for another house, or you can swap services for a house, etc.,
Yes.
and cars and things like that. Now, it's complicated, and it requires a degree of trust, and it requires trust in the other people. There's all of that sort of stuff comes into it, but
Yes.
we need to get better at that.
Well,
I
yes.
think.
What's the alternative? I think there's a very interesting history of money, isn't there, in terms of how money has enabled people to avoid certain things, which is convenient and clean in some ways, but there may have been a cost as well. We've always got to be looking at the value and the cost, haven't we, at the same time? Otherwise, we end up in a very cynical situation, which some argue we already have, if all we ever look at is cost and not the value of things.
And money is important. But money, effectively, was just a promissory note.
Yeah.
I gave you some oranges, and in return for that, because say for example, I'm a nutritionist and personal trainer. Say I need your services, but you don't need a nutritionist and personal trainer. We can't exchange. So I give you a promissory note to say that you can go and use this at some other place to that value.
Yes.
And I will fix it up with them. So it might be the local store you go and then buy your food from, and then I go and offer nutrition and personal training services to the owner of that store in return for you giving them the food to that value.
Yes.
So it shortcuts that circuit around by
Absolutely,
using
yeah.
cash. But it's
Yes.
effectively just a promissory note.
Yep.
But the further disconnected we've become from our community, the more we have to use that, because we don't have a trust basis. And because people are fearful, and if I say to you, or the local guy gives me honey, and I just say, look, I won't give you anything right now, but you can fix it up in some other way later. I'll pay you in some other way later, or someone else will do it and I'll fix it up. We don't have the circular economy working anymore to be able to trust one another that someone's going to give on that. But I do see in these little towns, there's little snippets on it. Like I mentioned yesterday, someone just paid for my coffee. I was just chatting with this woman, and it turned out it was her brother. I'd never met him before. And because I was chatting with he just paid for my coffee. So we have this kind of mini trust network that, some stage I'll probably pay for someone else's coffee, and it works out, you know.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We've got James here saying Ralph Nader had a whole system based on barter exchange of goods and services. And I think all the hippies here will have probably at some point been a local let's scheme. I remember doing that in Sheffield where I lived, the Sheffield Stone as an alternative currency. Money is trusting and confidence that it has and will retain value. And it's all work in progress, isn't it? And it's very interesting that often something like the digital currencies are often marketed and introduced into our consciousness from a very sort of fear-based perspective. It's all about, all our access to our funds, it would appear, for our own safety has made it more difficult to get access to our funds, interestingly. It's a bit like airport security, isn't it? The amount of rigmarole everyone has gone through and is subjected to because of an idea seems to outweigh the original point of what was being suggested in many ways. But anyway, that's a conversation that should be explored and should be unfolding and evolving.
I think too that one quick thing that James just said that I respectfully disagree with. Money doesn't retain its value; it's deflationary. It's
not
Massively
Bitcoin, though, right?
deflationary.
Not Bitcoin. If there's only, we could get into that.
Any mode of exchange doesn't devalue.
Yeah.
As long as we don't peg it back to the dollar, because an orange is always worth what someone will pay for an orange, and we'll swap that food and it's always worth what it is. It always has an inherent value of whatever it is. Whereas money, if we're using, whether it be a cryptocurrency or some other form of exchange, those things, may hold their value in terms of what you can do with it. They may or they may not compare to, if you're comparing it to the dollar, because that depends on the supply and demand of the asset as it is. But in terms of what you can do with it, it may not devalue, whereas money devalues for a whole host of reasons that let's not go into that now, but money devalues.
Yes.
And yeah, I think the big thing that I've had happen to me twice, and I don't do anything nefarious. I've had my bank accounts frozen on me twice now.
Yeah. In this country or
just-
elsewhere?
I had Wise when I was in this country, and the reason that they moved it, I was moving my money from Australia to here. So I was taking it from my bank account in Australia into a Wise bank account, exchanging the currency and moving it to my bank account in Portugal. I'd notified them I'd changed residency. I'd uploaded all my documents. I'd been doing it for 2 years. It wasn't a new thing. But for whatever reason, at some point, I got flagged for moving money.
For your own protection.
And they asked me to prove where I got my money from.
Yep.
And what I was doing with it. I said,
Yep.
I'm living. What?
Yes.
I'm just regularly moving my money to Portugal. I now live here.
Yes.
It's not going to another bank account. It's coming to me.
Yeah.
But they also required me to prove. And I said, I'm not 20. I had a life.
How many people do you think, when asked that question, Mel, have said, it's a fair cop, I'm a drug dealer and a terrorist, and you've just rumbled me. Keep the money.
Exactly. Like
Yes.
and I've here now in Australia, I believe it's the same in the UK. I had it personally in Australia, 2018. Go into a bank, want more than $1,000 out in cash, and it was because I was there for a short time and just wanted to, we need to know what you're doing with it. I said, I'm using it for pornography. Can I have my money, please?
Did you?
But yes, and she just laughed at me. And I said,
what was their reaction?
Okay, it's not illegal, so okay.
Oh, really? But what would they have done if you
and they
said
laughed.
to you? Yeah.
But the thing is that, do you think if someone's laundering money or drug dealing, they're going to say, I'm using it to launder money with?
I don't think so. I don't. That's my point. So many of these things for our presumed safety and security are working against us and not actually for our safety and security. And James, this is what I thought he was saying. Actually, I don't think he was. I think he was talking about he was hoping, or it's hoped, there's a trust that money retains its value, which I think you quite rightly added. It doesn't tend to retain its value for a number of reasons. I didn't say that it does retain value. I said it was dependent on our trust that it will. Yeah, we are totally aligned. Goods and services retain value. Yes. What?
Yeah.
Is this your money? Yes, I printed it in the basement. And that's why I think wine is the best investment. Once bottled, it only gets better. Well, you hope so, don't you? Now, some people might be thinking, living simply and us are talking sort of money politics. How are they connected? Well, they are, aren't they? Because presumably you're minimizing your exposure to that kind of madness by choosing, electing, and actually going about living a simpler life here in Portugal.
Yeah, I mean, the plan for me, and it's a fuzzy plan, you know. I had a plan. I did have a plan. It kind of didn't turn out as I wanted. So I'm still reformulating my plan. But nonetheless, you know, my view is that I don't have the resources to create a great big farm, but I do hope that I have enough fruit and vegetables left over to be able to make some things that I can then swap for items. And just keeping it simple and down to basics. You know, I just don't see the value in working 60 hours, 80 hours a week to run backwards all of the time. And the reality is that we don't own anything anymore. So if I don't pay my council fees, I'll probably take my house. So even though I say I own my house, I don't own it. If I don't pay my fees on my land, they will take it. So I don't feel any. We all grew up, I think, in our era, which is not 20-year-olds, feeling that we had some safety and security if we owned our house and land.
Yes.
And I think many of us are recognizing that we don't have that safety and security, actually. They can say we're putting a railway through and take it as well.
Yes.
So therefore, why am I busting a boiler to have that? I want to make sure that I can live well and develop good human connections. And it takes a lot of the stress out, because the more stuff that we own, as I think I've mentioned before, the more we have to insure, and you know, the bigger possessions that we have, the more hassle it is. They're always breaking down, they're always needing repair, they're always needing fixing, storage, insurance, etc. So the more that we can just get back into the basics of what do we need for survival and trust. And again, it comes back to that trust issue, that we need to feel that we can access something that we need that we may not have from our local community in some way. And that is scary, especially when we don't have the right connections in the local community. But what I've found is that even when I've possessed everything I thought that I would need, it's the thing that I didn't have is the stuff
Always
that
right, yeah. Yes.
I wanted
Yes.
or required in the moment. And I still had to come back to, you know, how can I source this from somebody else? And when I don't have that community network around me, then I have to figure out a way to pay for it. And if I don't have the money, it's not going to happen. So for me, it's just about trying to get back into the basics of what do I need, and what good can I do in my local community, and not about doing good because I need something back, but because this is where I think our happiness comes from, our soul comes from, is offering assistance and being part of something else for other people as well, whether other people, other animals, you know, looking after animals or looking after people, or being kindness and doing small kindnesses. We know how good it makes us feel.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, we do. And that helps our health, and that helps us, and it's all of those things.
So it really is. It's not just a new way of doing, and it's a new way of being and thinking as well. You're talking about, it's a sort of all-encompassing philosophy, ethic, isn't it? Rather than just something that we may have seen on a British sitcom years ago of somebody growing a few vegetables in their back garden. The famous Good Life scenario, stereotype.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with growing vegetables in the back garden and having the house. I've got a house too. Honestly, though, if I could find a drier, warmer way to be that the government wouldn't come and tell me off, I would much rather be sitting in the middle of my land in a portable house than maintaining a water-soaked house. It's got infiltration issues right now.
It is fascinating, isn't it? And I think a lot of people, if not doing what you're doing, they're thinking about it. You know, this is what would have been a sort of very marginal sort of interest, even an alternative and slightly weird way of life. It is becoming I was talking to the Portuguese last night about these things. People who used to say, I don't have a TV or I don't watch the news, used to be weirdos. It's not radical to say that anymore, is it? Because not many people do those things anymore. And if they do, they're excuse me, they're very much more cynical about it. And, their news comes from a variety of sources. And I think what you're talking about is also in the minds of people, whether they're not actively pursuing it or not. And it's very interesting. It's perhaps, what part of our, it could be, I could go as far as to say it's part of our evolution at the moment, because we are responding to a culture or a way of being and thinking that isn't really working terribly well, you could say, or isn't sustainable, to put it another way. And we're bound to find some alternatives and experiments to in the face of that.
And I think that we're the demographic to try and help with this.
Right,
because
okay.
yes,
I thought you mean what, the boomers / Gen Xers?
Yeah, because I was raised on a little farm.
Mm.
And I know how to make some stuff. I wish I'd learned a whole heap more from my mum before she passed, because she, 6 kids, did everything. But our kids don't. Most of our kids don't even know how to cook. So, there is a big movement. I think that our kids are saying we don't have a hope in heck of ever owning a house because the economy is so impossible for young people.
Yeah.
They don't have the hope of that. And so they're coming, I don't think they're there yet, but I think they're coming around to what's the purpose of doing all of this. They're not working, in some aspects, they're not working as hard as we used to, just to get that head, to have this dream of the white picket fence and all of that sort of stuff.
Yes.
So they're going, what else is there? I'm going to live in the moment for right now. But then if they don't have anything, to bring to the table, they don't know how to do some of the skills that they need to survive. And, they're constantly running on a rat wheel, even more than we were. But I think there's a lot of older people going, you know what, this was a bit crazy, actually. Why did I certainly have said that to my son. I can't believe I did all of that.
Yeah. You had to do it to see that, presumably.
Sorry?
You had to do it to see it. That's what people often do, isn't it, as human beings? We kind of need the experience upon which to reflect upon that experience, to realize it probably wasn't the best thing to do sometimes.
Yeah, but we're not passing on skills. And one of the things I want to look at is the wisdom of people over 50 and bringing that to the table, because
very good.
we're going to lose it. We're going to lose it on everyday things as well as big stuff. So
okay, well, that's a topic for the future, isn't it? And among many. So thank you for being here again today. And this idea, the umbrella term of living simply here in Portugal. Thanks for your comments, Barack, James as well, chatting here. If you have no income and nothing to report as income, how can either the US or Portugal ask you to pay taxes? Well, they'll ask you to file, won't they? You have to file, don't you, as a US citizen? And they'll
You're still paying EVA.
Yeah,
you're still paying EVA, and
There's no escape.
You're still paying car tax and everything else tax.
Indeed, there are many ways. Sorry, Carl, I've not been on a while. It looks like the jungle. You really haven't been on for a long time. I've had this backdrop, I think, for several months now. The jungle didn't die. It's used in other aspects of our broadcasting from Munson. But this is my own little Portugal shrine you're seeing behind me, Barrett. Good to see you this morning. Unfortunately, that's just income tax. As the old saying goes, the only things that are certain are death and taxes. But on top of that, I think we should remember, I think that's what this comment is trying to say here, and probably doesn't mean to mention prostate. Complain about the prostate or participate. I'm guessing what you're saying, trying to say there, JMC, is like you can complain or you can participate and get involved and change things practically in a hands-on kind of way, which I think was my last column in the Portugal Resident. And what other federal taxes are there? I pay property taxes, fine, no biggie. There are no other big taxes. Don't worry, they're working on it, Eric. EVA, yeah, 23%.
23%.
That's quite a lot of tax you're paying every time you go out and buy something. However, sometimes it's only 6% on certain things. Would that be called retrospect? Oh, yes. What? Learning from your experience. Death taxes and IMA not answering the phone. We're adding a new one. We're adding a new one this morning. The certainties in life. I'm not answering the phone. Cheers, James. Thanks, Mel, for being here this morning. Looking forward to more of these conversations, and you're looking to create resources for people, I think, ultimately as well, so people will be able to continue this conversation in other contexts as well. So thank you very much for being here this morning.
Thank you. Bye,
And the
everybody.
Squire of the Shire is saying so as well. Thanks, everybody, for being here on this morning, where we had a little bit of a retrospective about the Pope and the atmosphere, trying to get a sense of the atmosphere here in Catholic Portugal about the death of Pope Francis and what that means to the culture here, as well as a few other news stories. And, of course, Mel endeavouring to live simply here in Portugal, and we'll hear more from her in subsequent months. Thank you. We shall see you tomorrow. Take care, and bye for now.
In Portugal, there's a YouTube show full of fun and facts you need to know. Carl rings the bell and the man